Okay, so there are no questions about anything that we've been talking about. That's fine. So I just want to review just a couple points, and that is, when we think about the Bardo Thödol and the teachings and the way that they are guiding us to our meditation, it is like it is a table on which we place all the other practices that we do. So all the other deity yoga practices, all the Nundro practices, all the practices for bodhicitta and so on, all have to be placed someplace, and they're placed on the table of the Bardo Thödol. And the Bardo Thödol is the reason why we are doing it, so that we can liberate ourselves and that we can help to liberate other beings and so on. So in that regard, this is like a 2,000-piece jigsaw puzzle that the Buddha Dharma is like a 2,000-piece jigsaw puzzle that we're putting on this table, and we have to put it together without a picture. So the first thing we do is we find the corners and we find the straight edges. So for us, the opening prayers and the 4 daily prayers that we've been working on, that we've been studying, that we've been talking about, are those 4 corners and the straight edges. So it's important to get well established with this frame of the Bardo Thödol. So repeating this often, if you can do it every day, is great. If you can't do it every day, every few days, whatever you can do to keep your mind refreshed is very good. A few people have requested the red books that have the 4 daily prayers in them, so you don't have to go into this Pecha text. And if anybody wants them, just let me know, and I'll be glad to mail you a copy of the hard copy of this 4 daily prayers. Okay, so tonight we're going to begin as we have been beginning. We're going to read the root verses of the 6 intermediate states and the natural liberation of habitual tendencies and the 10 branch prayer. So we're going to go through what we've been doing to set our mindfulness. So this is something, if we were reading this for someone, the Bardo Thödol, this is what we would do. This is how we get ourselves, our mindfulness correct with everybody that is present, and particularly with the person who is passing or who has passed. So it's an important process. So what we'll do is continue reading page by page, person by person. So if you can remember this, I will go through the pages so that we can assign who's going to read. So Tom, if you'll read page 1, please, including the italics. French and Gabrielle, if you will read page 2, please. And Louisa, if you will read page 3. And Jane, if you will read page 5. Did I say 4? Who's doing 4?
4 would be this next one right now.
All right, Jane.
Yes.
Jane is reading page 4, and then Jerry would read page 5, and then 6 would be William, and then page 7 would be, 7 and 8 would be Bhavani, and then 9 would be Sandra, page 9, please. And then page 10 would be Joanna. Page 11 would be Michael. Page 12 would be Debbie. Page 13 would be Kate D. And page 14, I'll read page 14. That's by that time we will get to the purification practice. Okay, so we can begin on page 1 with Tom. And we can all read along, recite along, and mute your microphone, so please.
According to this cycle of teachings, The circle of birth and death can be seen as being composed of 6 intermediate states. These 6 modalities of existence are waking living state, dreaming, meditation, the time of death. The 2 successive phases of this after-death state are defined in the glossary. This poem emphasizes the central important perspective that relates to each of these states. It is recommended that practitioners should memorize these verses and recite them repeatedly while reflecting on their meaning throughout their lives. I bow down to the conquerors, the peaceful and wrathful deities. Alas, now as the intermediate state of living arises before me, renouncing laziness, for which there is no time in this life, I must enter the undistracted path of study, reflection, and meditation, taking perceptual experience and the nature of mind as the path.
I must cultivate actualization of the 3 Buddha bodies. Now, having obtained a precious human body, this one time, I do not have the luxury of remaining on a distracted path. Alas, now as the intermediate state of dreams arises before me, renouncing the corpse-like insensitive sleep of delusion, I must enter free from distracting memories, the state of the abiding nature of reality. Cultivating the experience of inner radiance through the recognition, emanation, and transformation of dreams, I must not sleep like a beast, but cherish the experiential cultivation which mingles sleep with actual realization.
At last, now as the intermediate state of meditative concentration arises before me, renouncing the mass of distractions and confusions, I must indistractedly enter a state which is devoid of suggestive apprehension and free from the 2 extremes, and attain stability in the stages of generation and perfection. At this moment, having renounced activity, having attained a singular concentration, I must not fall under the sway of bewildering mental afflictions. At last, now when the intermediate state of the time of death arises before me, renouncing all attachments, yearnings, and subjective apprehensions in every respect, I must undistractedly enter the path in which the oral teachings are clearly understood.
And eject my own awareness into the uncreated expanse of space. Immediately upon separation from this compounded body of flesh and blood, I must know this body to be like a transient illusion. Alas, now as the intermediate state of reality arises before me, renouncing the merest sense of awe, terror, or fear, I must recognize all that arises to be awareness manifesting naturally of itself. Know such sounds, lights, and rays to be visionary phenomena of the intermediate state. At this moment, having reached this crucial point, I must not fear the assembly of peaceful and wrathful deities which manifest naturally.
Alas, now as the intermediate state of rebirth arises before me, I must with one pointed intention concentrate my mind and resolutely connect with the residual potency of my virtuous past actions. I must obstruct the womb entrance and call to mind the methods of reversal. This is the time when perseverance and purity of perception are imperative. I must give up all jealousy and meditate on my spiritual teacher with consort.
From the mouth of the accomplished masters, come these words. Oh, you with your mind far away, thinking death will not come, entranced by the pointless activities of this life. If you were to return empty-handed now, would not your life's purpose have been utterly confused? Recognize what is it that you truly need. Is it a sacred teaching for liberation? So, should you not practice this divine sacred teaching, beginning from this very moment? And is it also said, if I choose not to take the oral teachings of the spiritual teacher to heart, am I not the deceiver of myself?
Natural liberation of habitual tendencies. The 10-branched prayer for the accumulation of merit. Visualize in the space before you the 3 precious jewels and the deities of the 100 enlightened families, and then recite as follows. The branch of taking refuge. Om Ah Hum. I respectfully take refuge, inseparably from now until enlightenment, in the infinitude of peaceful and wrathful deities, the conquerors gone to bliss, the 3 precious jewels, the meditational deities, the ocean of dakinis, and the assembly of oath-bound protectors, within the infinite Buddha fields, reaching to the limits of space.
The branch of invitation. I request the infinite, peaceful, and wrathful deities of the 10 directions and 4 times, compassionate emanations, embodying discriminative awareness and skillful means, pervading the vast infinite space of reality's expanse, to come to this place for the sake of all living beings. The branch of requesting the deities to be seated. I request that the meditational deities be seated here on sun, moon, and lotus cushions, symbolizing skillful means, discriminative awareness, and their stainless union. Upon their bejeweled thrones, fashioned in the form of lions and so forth, in an attitude of unblemished supreme delight, within this mandala of pristine cognition, which is the natural purity of phenomenal existence.
The branch of paying homage. I bow down to the assembly of the peaceful and wrathful conquerors, to the father and mother deities and all their offspring, whose essence is the pristine cognition of Samantabhadra, displayed as uncorrupted bliss in the sacred womb of Samantabhadri, the branch of making offerings. I request the peaceful and wrathful conquerors, the ocean of those gone to bliss, to partake of these inestimable outer, inner, and secret offerings, both those actually arrayed and those mentally emanated, which are offered for the benefit of all living beings.
The branch of confessing of negativity. I acknowledge and remorsefully confess all my negative obscurations and all my habitual tendencies of body, speech, and mind, beginninglessly influenced by the 3 poisons, which are the accumulating causes for rebirth among the lower states of suffering in cyclic existence. The branch of sympathetic rejoicing. I rejoice with great delight in the Buddha fields of supreme bliss, where all phenomenal existence is recognized as the pervasion of reality's expanse. I rejoice in all compassionate acts, in their merits and in their altruistic intention, and in all deeds that are the source of merit and pristine cognition.
The branch of turning the wheel of the sacred teachings. I exhort the teachers throughout the fields of the 10 directions, who are as numerous as atoms, to stir from their meditative commitments for the sake of all sentient beings, and to turn the wheel of the sacred teachings, thus entirely pervading the reaches of space. The branch of requesting the Buddhas not to enter Nirvana. I beseech you, O teachers, infinite Buddhas without exception, to remain present and not to pass into parinirvana, and to continue to enact deeds of extensive benefit for the sake of beings, until the world systems of cyclic existence have been emptied.
The branch of the dedication of merit to the unsurpassed greater vehicle. By the power of whatever past, present, and future virtues I accumulate, may all sentient beings throughout the furthest reaches of space mature into worthy recipients of the unsurpassed greater vehicle, and then swiftly attain the status of the infinite, peaceful, and wrathful deities. As the 10-branched prayer is concluded, the Lama visualizes that all the objects of refuge melt into light and then gradually dissolve into the crowns of each of the attending persons, including the dying person and himself.
Thank you, everybody. Please sit in the proper posture for meditation and just visualize the light that has come to all of us, that we are arising this light from within ourselves. All the objects melt into this light and then gradually dissolve into the crowns of all the attending persons, including what would be the dying person and yourself. Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, any comments about these two opening prayers? Yes, Louisa.
Can you explain a little bit on page 12, the branch of requesting the Buddhas not to enter Nirvana?
Yes, well, what we're asking, what we're requesting, what we're supplicating or beseeching the Buddhas, those who are in Nirmanakaya form, those great beings, those great teachers, magnificent, who have attained enlightenment in their lifetime, who have come, who have emanated into human form or into some form that teaches us not to leave us, not to go to parinirvana and leave us without a great teacher like a Buddha. So we have human teachers, we have our lamas and gurus and so on, our brothers and sisters, but here is a Buddha that we're talking about, someone who would be like Garchen Rinpoche or His Holiness Chitsang Rinpoche, many great beings who are regarded as Buddhas, to remain with us, to continue shining, radiating their light for us. So that is the general meaning of what it means not to go into parinirvana. Parinirvana would mean to leave their body and not to return in their body, not to return in a body, that they become a Buddha and not have human form.
So Lance, is it much like wishing for their long life, praying for their long life in human form?
Yes. Yes, and the continued teachings. Yes.
Okay, I have a question, please.
Yes.
If the Buddhas are all knowing, would they know that the person who died is not qualified? Did not qualify?
Not necessarily, because even the Buddhas don't know your karma, don't know, what is inside of you, because you are a Buddha. So each one of us is Buddha, but so we can recognize the bodhicitta, but we can't recognize the karma and the causes of karma and so on. We don't recognize that. We just know that it can be present, but we don't know what to extent it is. It's for each one of us to be able to liberate ourselves from that. If the Buddha could do that, we could be liberated by a Buddha. But we have to liberate ourselves.
So we are not being judged in this process.
We judge ourselves.
Okay, thank you.
And that's what this next part is, this Vajrasattva part, the purification, is to confess that we have been non-virtuous and so on, recognizing that. So this is a means of being able to liberate ourselves from the things that we have done. So we're judging ourselves.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we come to page 14. So this is the purification. So this is the Vajrasattva 100 syllable purification. So first we recite this mantra. Here we'll recite this 3 times in the Sanskrit. The first, and then we'll read it in the English. It's in small print. So if you can read that, we'll read this out loud so that everybody can understand the meaning of this. It is the unified intention of the body, speech, and mind of the 42 peaceful and 58 wrathful deities of the great Buddha field that displays the wisdom that cuts through all ignorance to manifest their wisdom for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings. Om Ahom Bodhicitta Mahasukha Jana Datu Ah Om Rulu Rulu Hom Jo Hom Om Ahom Bodhicitta Mahasukha Jana Datu Ah Om Rulu Rulu Hom Jo Hom Om Ahom Bodhicitta Mahasukha Jana Datu Ah Om Rulu Rulu Hom Jo Hom. From the field of reality's expanse, uncreated and pure, within a celestial palace, which is a seminal point of light, pure, unceasing, and radiant, through the natural expressive power of one's own mind, uncontrived and empty, intrinsic awareness, radiant and empty, arises in the form of Vajrasattva. Seated upon a bejeweled throne, adorned with a lotus, sun, and moon cushions. The right hand holds a Vajra at the heart, symbolizing the union of awareness of absolute wisdom and emptiness. The left hand supports a bell resting on the hip, symbolizing the union of wisdom appearances and emptiness. And the head is adorned with a garland of perfect Buddhas, representing the 5 enlightened families of those gone to bliss. Thus, Vajrasattva manifests in the form of the Buddha body of perfect resource, exquisitely adorned with silks and jewels, seated in the posture of royal ease, with the right leg extended and the left drawn in. Radiating at the heart is the seed syllable hum, surrounded by the 100 syllable mantra. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Drista Dredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Chiya Kuru Hum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan. Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Triya Kuru Hum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Triya Kuru Hum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Triya Kuru Hum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Triya Kuru Hum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Maha Samaya Satwaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsan Triya Kuru Hum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Maha Samaya Satwaha. So the English translation of the Sanskrit is Om Vajrasattva Samaya. Help to protect my vow, to purify myself. May you remain firm with me. Grant me the complete satisfaction. Grow with me. Be loving towards me. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature. Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. Make my mind, heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. Revel in the bliss of the four joys, O Blessed One, who embodies the essence within me. Do not abandon me. Grant me the realizations of the indestructible nature. Make me one with you. Thus, I signify my unity with non-duality. Ah. So that concludes the purification practice. So now we go to page 67. So we're skipping over the daily main practice. We will come back to that at the conclusion when we go through the whole Bardo Thödol and then come back to page 17 and continue that as our daily practice. So we go to page 67. So now the question that we should have for ourselves is, how prepared are we for our passing, for our death, for leaving our body? So that's a question that we all should contemplate. And it's the Bardo Thödol that helps us to prepare for our death, to be able to understand the significance of the prayers, the practices, the deity yoga practices in particular, and the accumulations of wisdom and merit, and cultivating bodhicitta. All these things are all brought together in the Bardo Thödol. So this is what we have to do in this life. This is why we have this life, is to be able to prepare ourselves to be able to liberate from this life. We've given ourselves this gift of life in order that we can recognize what our non-virtues are, so that we can purify ourselves, so that we can remain in the Bardo of reality, to be able to Bardo, to remain as a Buddha. So to help us to do this is this prayer that we're about to do, called the Aspirational Prayer, calling for the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for assistance. So throughout everything that we do in our Buddhist teachings, our Buddhist studies, our Buddhist contemplations, our Buddhist meditations, and so on, what we are doing is we're preparing ourselves to be ready, as we said. So we're learning what it is that we need to do. And then we're learning why we need to do it. Not just what it is, but why. We need to have critical thinking. We need to be able to understand what the causes of our suffering is, what the causes of our happiness is, and what the causes of our liberation are, and what the causes of our being reborn are. So we have to understand what it all is, and then why it's manifesting, how it's happening, what dynamics are at work. You know, it's all ours. So we have to understand that from a point of view of why this is happening, be able to answer that. And then the question becomes, how do we liberate ourselves? How do we be born again? How do we suffer? How do we do all these things? So through all these teachings and through all these practices, we're practicing how, we're understanding. So either we're ignoring these teachings and we're performing the how to become a migrator, to remain in this cycle of existence, in samsara, or we are practicing, we're learning how to practice to become a Buddha and Bodhisattva. And so through that, we're purifying ourselves, and able to liberate ourselves, not just when we die, but before we die. Each meditation becomes a rehearsal for that death. We go through many, many, many deaths, many, many rebirths. So by learning how to do that, we are rehearsing ourselves for our liberation from being a human being, from being a suffering human being into being a Buddha, a Bodhisattva. So realizing that being able to do this totally by ourselves, with our own process of being able to develop how to do this, is very difficult. We could do it. And maybe we've had many, many lives in which we've been trying to do that. But then once we recognize that there are teachers who can help us to recognize the what, the why, and the how lifetimes are saved, how we don't have to go through as many lifetimes. As a matter of fact, that once we get on this Dharma path, once we experience this, it's said that in 3 lifetimes, we can be fully liberated. So it's through the assistance of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, of those deities, of those teachers and so on, that we make ourselves available to receive their teachings, their precious teachings. So I'm on page of 67 here. And so I'm going to recite this. This we recite every day as we are practicing, as we are reciting for someone who has passed. So this prayer is the first prayer that gets recited every day as part of the Bardo Thödol. It says, "O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, abiding in the 10 directions, refuge of living beings, imbued with compassion, imbued with knowledge, imbued with clear vision, and imbued with love, come to this place by the power of your compassion and accept these displayed and visualized offerings. O compassionate ones, as you are the fountain of all-knowing pristine cognition, of loving compassion, of effective activity, and of a power to grant refuge beyond conception, come to this place. O compassionate ones, this human being, Rikibu, which translates to be, O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, O child of Buddha nature. So here we would recite the being who is dying or who has died, or here we could recite our own name. As we are doing this practice, we should recite our own name. So if you know your Dharma name, then you would say, oh, Rikibu Kunchok Bema Dorje, whatever your name is. If you don't have a Dharma name, then recite your English name, your normal name that you use. But when you take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha with a refuge practice, with a ceremony, then you are given a Dharma name. So this is when you would use your Dharma name, one case in which you would use your Dharma name. So I'll repeat this paragraph again. It says, O compassionate ones, this human being, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, is leaving this world and journeying to another shore. He or she is being cast off from this world and approaching the great transition of death. Suffering deeply, he or she is without a friend, without a refuge, without a protector, and without a companion. He, she is her perception of this life is fading away. He, she is moving on to another world, entering a dense darkness and falling into an unfathomable abyss. Entering the thick forest of doubt, he, she will be driven on by the potency of past actions. He, she will be entering a great wilderness, borne away on a great ocean, and driven on by the vital winds of past actions. He, she will be moving in a direction where there is no firm ground, entering a great battlefield, being seized by great malevolent forces and becoming overwhelmed by fear and terror upon meeting the executors of the unfailing laws of cause and effect. In accordance with his or her past actions, powerless to resist, he, she may even yet again be entering the realms of rebirth. The time has come when he, she has no choice but to move on, alone, leaving his, her dear friends behind. O compassionate ones, grant refuge now to this person, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, who has no refuge. Protect him, her. Be his, her companion. Defend him, her, from the great darkness of the intermediate state. Turn back the great hurricane of past actions. Protect him, her, from the great fear and terror of the unfailing laws of cause and effect. Rescue him, her, from the long and dangerous pathways of the intermediate state. O compassionate ones, be unsparing in your compassion. Grant assistance to him, her. Do not allow him, her to be expelled into the three kinds of inferior existence. Without wavering from your ancient vows, swiftly release the power of your compassion. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, for the sake of this person, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, be unsparing in your compassion. Do not allow this sentient being to fall under the power of negative past actions. O three precious jewels, protect us from the sufferings of the intermediate state. Om, Ah, Hum. Read aloud 3 times by oneself and all others present. May its impact not cease until cyclic existence has been emptied. Let good auspices prevail. So let's go back, please, to page 67. So now let's read this 3 times out loud. So we'll begin with, excuse me a second, Curtis. So Curtis, will you read page 67? And then Thomas, will you read, or shall we move along? Thomas?
Move on, please.
Kate, would you like to read? Kate T?
Sure, I can read.
All right, read page 68, please. And then page 69, it's short, but Adrian, if you will read page 69, and then lead us in Om Ah Hum. So we'll recite Om Ah Hum a mile around.
So I'm gonna be reading it 3 times.
No, you're gonna read 1 time each. I'm sorry, 1 time each. Thank you for reminding me. So you read it 1 page, 1 time. Kate, you read it 1 page, 1 time. Then Adrian was reading next, correct? And then Gary, if you will read page 67 again. And then Amanda, will you read page 68 again?
Yes.
Okay, and then Michelle, where were we, on page 60? We were on page 69, were we, or 68?
You are on 69.
69, thank you. And then one more time, Dan Miller, will you read page 67, starting over again? Barbara and Robert, will you read page 68 together? And then John, will you read page 69 and lead us in Om Ah Hum? So we'll just do Om Ah Hum 1 time, Adrian and the person who's reading page 69, but the last time we'll do a mile around. Okay, so let's begin. Curtis, page 67.
Aspirational prayer, calling to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for assistance. Recite each day. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, abiding in the 10 directions, refuge of living beings, imbued with compassion, imbued with knowledge, imbued with clear vision, and imbued with love, come to this place by the power of your compassion and accept these displayed and visualized offerings. O compassionate ones, as you are the fountain of all-knowing pristine cognition, of living compassion, of effective activity, and of a power to grant refuge beyond conception, come to this place. O compassionate ones, this human being, Rig Ki-Bu, Curtis Spear, is leaving this world and journeying to another shore. She is being cast off from this world and approaching the great transition of death. Suffering deeply, she is without a friend, without a refuge, without a protector, and without a companion. Her perception of this life is fading away. she is moving on to another world, entering a dense darkness and falling into an unfathomable abyss. Entering the thick forest of doubt, she will be driven on by the potency of past actions. She will be entering a great wilderness, born
away on a great ocean and driven on by the vital winds of past actions. She will be moving in a direction where there is no firm ground, entering a great battlefield, being seized by great malevolent forces, and becoming overwhelmed by fear and terror upon meeting the executors of the unfailing laws of cause and effect. In accordance with her past actions, powerless to resist, she may even yet realms of rebirth. The time has come when she has no choice but to move on, alone, leaving her dear friend. O compassionate ones, grant refuge now to this person, Rigkibu Champayandral, who has no refuge. Protect him, her companion. Defend her from the great darkness of the intermediate state. Turn back the great hurricane of past actions. Protect her from the great fear and terror of the unfailing laws of cause and effect. Rescue her from the long and dangerous pathways of the intermediate state. O compassionate ones, be unsparing in your compassion. Grant assistance to her. Do not allow her to be expelled into the three kinds of inferior existence. Without wavering from your ancient vows, swiftly release the power of your compassion.
O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, for the sake of this person, Rikibu, Konchon Gyaltso, be unsparing in your compassion. Do not allow this sentient being to fall under the power of negative past actions. O three precious jewels, protect us from the suffering of the intermediate state. Om Ahom.
Aspirational prayer, calling to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for assistance. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, abiding in the 10 directions, refuge of living beings, imbued with compassion, imbued with knowledge, imbued with clear vision, and imbued with love. Come to this place by the power of your compassion and accept these displayed and visualized offerings. As you are the fountain of all-knowing pristine cognition of loving compassion, of effective activity, and power to grant refuge beyond conception, come to this place. Oh, compassionate ones, this human being, Reg Chi Bu, is leaving the and journeying to another shore, being cast off in this world and approaching the great transition of death. Suffering deeply, he is without a friend, without a refuge, without a protector, and without a companion. His perception of this life is fading away. He is moving on to another world, entering a dense darkness and falling into an unfathomable abyss. Entering the thick forest of doubt, he will be driven on by the potency of past actions. He will be entering a great wilderness, born
away on a great ocean and driven on by the vital winds of past actions, he or she will be moving in a direction where there is no firm ground, entering a great battlefield, being seized by great malevolent forces and becoming overwhelmed by fear and terror upon meeting the executors of the unfailing laws of cause and effect. In accordance with his or her past actions, powerless to resist, he or she may even yet again be entering the realms of rebirth. The time has come when he or she has no choice but to move on, alone, leaving his or her dear friends behind. O compassionate ones, grant refuge now to this person, Rikibu, Contragnortum Palmum, who has no refuge. Protect him or her, be his or her companion. Defend him or her from the great darkness of the intermediate state. Turn back the great hurricane of past actions. Protect him or her from the great fear and terror of the unfailing laws of cause and effect. Rescue him or her from the long and dangerous pathways of the intermediate state. O compassionate ones, be unsparing in your compassion. Grant assistance to him or her. Do not allow her to be expelled into the three kinds of inferior existence. Without wavering from your ancient vows, swiftly release the power of your compassion.
Aspirational prayer calling to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for assistance. Sorry.
Page 69.
Yeah. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, for the sake of this person, Rikibu, be unsparing in your compassion. Do not allow this sentient being to fall under the power of negative past actions. O three precious jewels, protect us from the sufferings of the intermediate state. Om Hom. Om Hom. Om Hom. Read
Let's do page 67 again.
67 again.
Someone else was reading that, I think.
Yeah.
Vajra family, Barbara and Robert.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Barely.
Here. Aspirational prayer, calling to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for assistance. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas abiding in the 10 directions, refuge of living beings, imbued with compassion, imbued with knowledge, imbued with clear vision, and imbued with love. Come to this place by the power of your compassion and accept these displays and visualized offerings. O compassionate ones, as you are the fountain of all-knowing pristine cognition of loving compassion, of effective activity, and of a power to grant refuge beyond conception, come to this place. O compassionate ones, this human being, Rikibu, Barbara Archer, is leaving this world and journeying to another shore. She is being cast off from this world and approaching the great transition of death. Suffering deeply, she is without a friend, without a refuge, without a protector, and without a companion. Her perception of this life is fading away. She is moving on another world, entering a dense darkness and falling into an unfathomable abyss. Entering the thick forest of doubt, she will be driven on by the potency of past action. She will be entering a great wilderness, born.
Did Michelle read?
No, I can read. Away on a great ocean and driven on by the vital winds of past actions. He or she will be moving in a direction where there is no firm ground, entering a great battlefield, being seized by great malevolent forces, and becoming overwhelmed by fear and terror upon meeting the executors of the unfailing laws of cause and effect. In accordance with his or her past actions, powerless to resist, she may even yet again be entering the realms of rebirth. The time has come when she has no choice but to move on, alone, leaving her dear friends behind. O compassionate ones, grant refuge now to this person, Rikibu, Michelle DeMello, who has no refuge. Protect him, her, be her companion, defend him, her, from the great darkness of the intermediate state. Turn back the great hurricane of past actions. Protect him, her, from the great fear and terror of the unfailing laws of cause and effect. Rescue him, her, from the long and dangerous pathways of the intermediate state. O compassionate ones, Be unsparing in your compassion. Grant assistance to him, her. Do not allow him, her to be expelled into the three kinds of inferior existence. Without wavering from your ancient vows, swiftly release the power of your compassion.
O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, for the sake of this person, Rikibu John, be unsparing in your compassion. Do not allow the sentient being to fall under the power of past action, negative past actions. O three precious jewels, protect us from the sufferings of the intermediate state. Om Ahom, Om Ahom, Om Ahom, Om Ahom, Om Ahom, Om Ahom, Om Ahom. Om Ahom,
Om
Om
Ahum,
Ahom,
Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om Ahum. Om Ahum, 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 Om. Okay, thank you. So this section here. So when we recite Om Ahum, what are we reciting? What's the meaning of this? Anybody have an answer to that? So it's a refuge prostration.
Om Ahom.
Yes, Om Ahum. And our body, our speech, and our mind to become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of the enlightened ones. That's our goal, that our body, speech, and mind becomes inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. So as we are reciting that with a mal around, as we're doing that, we should be visualizing that inseparability, that we are becoming more and more and more inseparable with all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So in the beginning, it's a very mechanical thing. We're just, very coarse. But as we do this over and over again, month after month, year after year, we find that it becomes much more stable, that our refuge becomes much more stable. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay, so let's go back to page 67 and talk a little bit about the meaning of some of these phrases that are here. I think most of this is fairly obvious. If anybody has any questions, just turn on your microphone and speak right up, please. So I think this first part is pretty self-explanatory. The compassionate ones are the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, those meditational deities, those beings who are the embodiment of bodhicitta, that they are the perfection of bodhicitta. Everything that they do with their body, speech, and mind is bodhicitta. And that's what we are cultivating, our bodhicitta to be displayed with our body, speech, and mind. So all compassionate ones, as you are the fountain of all knowing pristine cognition. Pristine cognition is another way of saying the clear light, or another way of saying Dzogchen, or another way of saying Mahamudra, or another way of saying, the liberation, the pristine cognition, that is beyond our comprehension in terms of our brain, our intellect, but it is something that we experience, this pristine cognition, this realization of of our true nature, of Buddha nature, this true nature that we have within ourselves. So it has to be experienced.
Are we trying to have this person be completely liberated, going on beyond the normal?
You mean for the person that we're reciting the Bardo Thödol?
Yes.
We are guiding them.
But are we guiding them to what type of, how far are we guiding them with this?
We're guiding them all the way. So we will guide them to be liberated, to become a Buddha, or we will guide them, if they can't accept that, to be able to guide them into a good rebirth, into a noble rebirth. And we will introduce them, remind them of all the different deities that we experience in the Bardo of reality.
Okay.
That are there to help us, to help to rescue that being, to allow them to liberate themselves.
All right. We asked the Buddhas not to go into the next and I forget the name of the next step that they were.
The parinirvana?
Yeah. So is this bringing them up to Nirvana or even up to parinirvana, depending on if they're if this already happens to be a bodhisattva?
Correct. Both. You know, if Nirvana is within samsara, is part of samsara. Parinirvana is liberation from samsara. That only a Buddha could be able to attain that level of liberation. So we're guiding that person, we're guiding ourselves to be able to recognize all the signs and all the symbolism and so on of that liberation, and what it is that may hold us back, and what it is that can guide, help us to liberate. So we'll talk more about that. Right now, it may seem very abstract, but as we proceed along with the Bardo Thödol, this will become more apparent. You know, we'll be able to see the symbolism of the characteristics of the peaceful deities and of the wrathful deities that are in the Bardo of reality, that are meditational deities that we experience as we do deity yoga practices and so on while being a human being.
Lance, quick question.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You said that as we were reciting the El Mahong, we were visualizing becoming inseparable with the Buddhas. But there's not such a description of how you become those Buddhas.
Well, we're working on that.
Okay. Is it coming like further up in the text?
Yes. As we go further from the text, yes.
Okay.
So, yes. So right now we have to establish what our boundaries are, you know, what the frame of all this is. So we have to, it's knowing the context of what it is that we're trying to do. We're trying to liberate by hearing. That's the title of the book, The Great Liberation by Hearing in the Intermediate States. Om Ahong, for our body, speech, and mind to become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of the enlightened ones. So this is something that we have to become the embodiment of. This is something that we need to know from the very beginning, not at the end. If we have this notion of what we're trying to do, then that's a guidance unto itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So Bardo practice brings it all together, deity yoga and the refuge and purification, right?
Correct. Okay, so So we left off with the all-knowing pristine cognition of loving compassion, of effective activity, and of a power to grant refuge beyond conception come to this place. So we're asking, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are all within us. They're not out there. It's all within ourselves. What we're doing is learning to recognize our true nature. So this wisdom, the skillful means, all this is within ourselves. So we're asking for it to come up that we can recognize it, that we can purify the things that are blocking it, our non-virtues, our confusions, and so on, the obscurations, that we're asking ourselves to purify ourselves so we can recognize these within ourselves. So then the next stanza says, "O compassionate ones, this human being, Rikibu, O child of Buddha nature." So here it's saying it, "O child of Buddha nature." You could write that. And instead of saying Rikibu, you could say, "O child of Buddha nature." Maybe it'll be more meaningful. Or you could say, "O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchokpe Madorje," or whatever your name is. And frankly, when I recite this, that's exactly how I do it. I say, "O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu," and then I say the name of the person that I'm reciting this for. We're trying to establish mindfulness. Whatever we can do to stabilize mindfulness of the practice is the most important thing. Leaving this world, journeying to another shore, being cast off. So this is all pretty self-explanatory. Suffering deeply without a friend, without a refuge, is deep in this life, fading away, moving to another world of dense darkness. So all this is simile, is metaphor for passing into, the great unknown, so to speak. Entering into an unfathomable abyss. For us as an ordinary human being, we would think of death like this. We might think of death like this. Entering the thick forest of doubt, driven on by the potency of past actions. The potency of past actions is our past karma. The karmic winds that are, at our back, are they virtuous karma or is it non-virtuous karma? He's entering a great wilderness, borne away on an ocean, driven on by vital winds of past actions. There's the analogy, the vital winds of past actions. Moving in a direction where there's no firm ground. There's no form anymore. Remember, this is formless. We're moving into the formless realm. We're going into the spiritual realm. The body is going away. The intellect is going away. And now it just becomes pure spirit. Moving in a direction where there's no firm ground, entering a great battlefield, being seized by great malevolent forces and becoming overwhelmed by fear and terror upon meeting the executors of cause and effect. So this is our self. These are our demons. These are the things that we hold on to. These are the things that we have aversions to. These are the things that are pulling us back and pushing us away and so on. So we need to be able to recognize this as this great battlefield. And this analogy is used in so many other, spiritual traditions, not just Buddhism, but in Christianity and in Judaism and in Hinduism. So this idea of the conflict of ordinary human beings going through this. We go through this in the waking state. And the question is, do we take it with us into the Bardo of reality state? Did we make it through the Bardo of death? How we make it through Bardo of death? We can become liberated right at the Bardo of death if we have solved this problem right away, that we are already in Buddha nature, that it's seamless. There's nothing to be gained. There's nothing to be lost because we're already there. So we'll talk more about all this. In accordance with his past actions, powerless to resist. In other words, so this next, it says, powerless to resist he or she may even yet again be entering the realms of rebirth. So what that means is that they go through the Bardo of death, they go into the Bardo of reality, and they are just terrorized by the freedom that is in the Bardo of reality, and they're unable to deal with it. And right away, they just want to be born again. They want a body right away. And then depending on what their karmic winds are, would be a huge determining factor as to what kind of a body they have, where they go. They could manifest many, many different ways in the form realm. So we'll talk about that as we get deeper into the Bardo Thödol. So they could be entering the realms of rebirth. When we do this, we say that during the time that a being is going through this experience is 49 days, 7 weeks. And we don't know if that person is being liberated on the first day or on the 21st day. We don't know if that person is being reborn as a human being or in a form realm, as an animal or something, on the first day or on the 49th day or anything in between. We don't know where it's happening, but we're performing this, we're reciting this for their benefit, no matter what. And not just for them, but we're also visualizing all the other beings that are in this Bardo of reality, that are going through this. And we are reciting it for ourselves, that we become so familiar with it that when our time comes to leave the body, as I've said many times now, that we are already there. So this is a rehearsal for us. So it's the book of the living and the dying. Sogyal Rinpoche titled his book that, the book of living and dying, because this is a practice for the living, for when we drop our body, that we become a Buddha, that we become liberated. It's for the dying to guide them through that who may not have these teachings, or maybe they've had these teachings, but they need to be reminded of them. So as we're doing this, we're visualizing light, and we'll get to that part, and we're generating light to those beings to guide them in the Bardo. And this is not a light that we see with our eyes, but it is a spiritual light. So the time has come when they're going to leave, no choice to move on with their dear friends. O compassion ones, grant refuge now to this person, Ricky Boo, who has no refuge. Protect him, her, defend him, her from the great darkness, turn back the hurricane of past actions, protect him from the fear and terror of the unfailing laws of cause and effect. So if we haven't neutralized cause and effect, then we're going to be subject to cause and effect. So this is what we need to purify. Rescue him from the long and dangerous pathways of the intermediate state. I mean, this is, time means nothing here. O compassion ones, be unsparing in your compassion. Grant assistance to him to be excelled in the 3 kinds of inferior existence. The inferior existence are the 3 lower realms, right? The animal realm, the hungry ghost realm, and the hell realms. Those are the 3 lower realms. If we've gotten to the point where we are now, we would like to think that we're not going to be reborn in those 3 lower realms. But something could happen, and we could make a mistake. And now we're suddenly back being reborn into those realms. And not just when we die, but right now. We could be a very holy person doing practice every day, doing all this, but meanwhile, something terrible happens that we didn't expect. And all of a sudden, this great non-virtue comes to us. And now we feel like that we're in a hell, or that we feel like that we're in this miserable, hungry ghost preta existence, or that we're behaving like animals. And now we continue to behave like animals. We commit such a heinous crime that now everything we think about is animalistic. Without wavering from your ancient vows, quickly release the power of your compassion. So we're asking for the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas so that we can remember the teachings that we have experienced, that we have done in this lifetime, so that we can be rescued from rebirth as a lower being. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, for the sake of this person, be unsparing in your compassion. So we're asking always for this compassion. Do not allow the sentient being to fall under the power of negative past actions. O three precious jewels, protect us from the suffering of the intermediate state, the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha. Om Ahung. And then we recite the Om Ahung. So we can recite that as many times as you want. You know, I personally like to do it a mile around. You know, it gives me a chance to be able to become mindful of what I'm doing. You know, if I just do it 3 times, you know, my feeble mind can't, you know, it's got all these things going on. I may not be able to focus, but if I do a mile around, I got a better chance of focusing 2 or 3 times while I'm reciting this, and then let my mind wander again. Not that I wanted to, but it just does. So all these techniques are there to help us to stabilize our mindfulness, knowing that we will not be able to do it all the time.
What is it that we're called when we're in this state?
A mental being.
A mental being.
A mental being. Whether we're meditating or we're in this state of transition, going into the Bardo, we're a mental being, unless we are a spiritual being, unless we have purified ourselves and we are already a spiritual being.
Is that what they call the soul?
Yes, that is a good analogy, and we'll talk much more about that later on. So yes, the soul is, and we attach to the soul, and we'll talk to that. That's part of eternalism, and that's one of the extremes that keeps us from being liberated. That we cling to the idea of the soul, and the soul will be liberated. That the soul will save us. The soul is pure and is eternal. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. That's quite a conversation, and we've talked about it one-on-one before. So, okay, so now, so now for tonight, we're going to move to the next of the 4 daily prayers. So we'll come back to the book again next week. We'll start with page 67 where we just were, and then we'll continue on with page 70 into part 1, which is the elucidation at the intermediate state, the time of death. So we're going to talk about that. So we're going in little sections, but now we need to complete the understanding of the 4 daily prayers. So last time we left off, excuse me, let me get to my place here. Okay, so go to page 207. This is the aspirational prayer, which rescues from the dangerous pathways of the intermediate states. So we read this last time. So now let's read it now. So Eileen, would you read page 207, please?
Yes.
Okay. And then French, I'm not leaving out Gabrielle. Is she there?
She's not here tonight.
Okay. All right. Well, then we're going to start back over again. So Eileen's going to read page 207. French, will you read page 208? Louisa, will you read page 209? I'm just following the images on my screen, so they've changed around. So we're starting a new order. So Louisa, you read page 209, then page 210. Jane and Jerry, will you read that together, please? Page 211. And then William and Bhavani, will you read page 212 together, please? And then Sandra, will you read page 213, please? And then we're going to continue reading where we left off last time. So page 214, Joanna, will you read that? As a matter of fact, let me read page 214, and there's a reason for that. We'll come back to that. So I'll read 214. Joanna, will you read page 215, please? Then Kate D., will you read page 216? Adrian, will you read page 217? And you can read page 217 and 218. Okay? All right, so now we begin going back to page 207. Okay. French?
Aspirational.
Beg pardon? I
No.
think French. Oh, I'm sorry. Eileen is starting. Yes, you're right. You're right.
Aspirational prayer, which rescues from the dangerous pathways of the intermediate states. I bow down to the spiritual teachers, meditational deities of Endaginis. May I be guided on the path of their great love. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence driven by deep-seated bewilderment, may the spiritual teachers, holders of the oral lineages, draw me forward, leading me on a path of radiant clear light, which is undistracted study, reflection, and meditation. May the supreme consorts, the host of Dakinis, support me from behind, and thus encircle. May I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated delusion, may the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva draw me forward, leading me on a path of radiant blue light, which is the pristine cognition of reality's expanse.
May the Supreme Consort, Akasha Datvishvari, support me from behind, and thus encircled may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence driven by deep-seated aversion, may the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva Akshobhya draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant white light, which is the mirror-like pristine cognition. May the Supreme Consort, Buddha Lochana, support me from behind, and thus encircled may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence driven by deep-seated pride, may the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant yellow light, which is the pristine cognition of sameness.
May the Supreme Consort, Mamikai, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, and be escorted to the level of the utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as a Roman cyclic existence driven by the deep-seated attachment, may the transcendent Lord Antibahaba draw me forward, leading me to the path of radiant red light, which is the pristine cognition of discernment. May the Supreme Consort Pandara Vicini support me from behind, and thus encircled may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, and be escorted to the level of the utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as a Roman cyclic existence driven by deep-seated envy, may the transcendent Lord Amakapashtu draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant green light, which is the pristine cognition of accomplishment. May the Supreme Consort Samaya Tara support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha.
Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by the 5 virulent poisons, may the transcendent conquerors, the male Buddhas of the 5 enlightened families, draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant rainbow light, which is the 4 pristine cognitions combined. May the 5 supreme female Buddhas, the purity of the expanse, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the light paths of the 6 impure classes of beings and be escorted to the 5 utterly supreme and pure Buddha fields. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence driven by deep-seated habitual tendencies, may the assembly of spiritual heroes and awareness holders draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant, multicolored light, which is the co-emergent pristine cognition. May the supreme consorts, the host of dakinis, support me from behind, and thus encircled may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha.
Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated bewildering perceptions, may the assembly of blood-drinking, wrathful deities draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant rainbow light, which is free of fear and terrifying perceptions. May the assembly of the Karadasvari, Queen of the Expanse, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Om, Om. May the fields of the 5 elements not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the fields of the 5 Buddhas. May the elements of space not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the field of the blue Buddha.
May the elements of water not arise as a hostile force. May I see the field
as the field of the white Buddha.
May the elements of earth not arise as a hostile force.
May I see them as the field of the yellow Buddha.
May the elements of fire not arise as a hostile force.
May I see them as the field of the red Buddha.
May the elements of wind not arise as a hostile force.
May I see them as the field of the green Buddha. May the awesome sounds, lights, and rays not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the infinite fields of the peaceful and wrathful deities. May the rainbow-colored elements not rise up as a hostile force. May I see them as the fields of the manifold Buddhas. May I recognize all sounds as my own sounds. May I recognize all lights as my own lights. May I recognize all rays as my own rays. May I spontaneously recognize the characteristics of the intermediate states. May the fields of the 3 Buddha bodies be manifest. Samaya.
The aspirational prayer, which protects from fear of the intermediate states. When my life's course is ended and I roam alone in the intermediate states, the loved ones of this world can no longer help me. So at this critical time, may the conquerors, the peaceful and wrathful deities, quickly release the power of their compassion, and may the deep darkness of my ignorance be dispelled. When I roam alone, separated from my loved ones, and myriad images of emptiness arise, naturally manifesting, may the Buddhas quickly release the power of their compassion, and may the fear of the awesome and terrifying intermediate state be annulled. When the 5 radiant lights of pristine cognition dawn, may I recognize them as my own nature, and without awe and without terror, and as the manifold forms of the peaceful and wrathful deities arise, may I be fearlessly confident and recognize the characteristics of the intermediate states. So on some of your pages, that line may be missing. We'll go back over it later on. So next, please.
When I experience suffering as the result of negative past actions, may the great compassionate one dispel all such misery. And as the natural sound of reality reverberates like 1,000 peals of thunder, may all sounds be heard as the teachings of the great vehicle. When I am driven on by past actions, unable to find a refuge, may the meditational deities dispel all such misery. And as I experience the suffering of habitual tendencies and past actions, may the meditative stabilities of inner radiance and bliss naturally arise. When I am miraculously born into the intermediate state of rebirth, may I not be beguiled by the perverse prophecies of Mara. And as I freely arrive at every place that I think of, may the bewildering fear and terror generated by my negative past actions not arise.
When the roars of savage wild beasts echo around me, may their cries be transformed into the sound of the sacred teachings, the 6 syllables, Om Mani Padme Hum. And as I am engulfed by snow, rain, wind, and darkness, may I achieve the pure clairvoyance of radiant, pristine cognition. May the sentient beings in the intermediate state, similar in kind to myself, be born into the higher realms, free from rivalry. And as severe, dissonant mental states generate insatiable hunger and thirst, may the afflictions of hunger, thirst, heat, and cold be annulled. When I see my future parents in union, may I perceive them as Mahakarinika and consort, and for the sake of others, being blessed with the power to choose a birthplace, may I achieve an exalted body, adorned with the auspicious major and minor marks.
Once I have achieved birth in the supreme human form, may I act so as to swiftly liberate all who see and hear me. And may I not be influenced by my negative past actions, but multiply and emulate my past merits. Wherever I may be born, in whatever land it may be, may I quickly encounter the meditational deity of my past lives, knowing from immediately after birth how to speak and walk. May I remember my past lives and attain the power of non-forgetfulness. May I easily come to master by study and reflection the manifold stages of learning, small, intermediate, and great. May the country into which I am born be auspicious, and may all sentient beings be blessed with happiness. O peaceful and wrathful conquerors, may I and all others become entirely at one with you and come to resemble you in all your forms, your retinues, your lifespan, and your Buddha fields, and in every quality of your supreme auspicious marks. Through the compassion of Samantabhadra and the infinite peaceful and wrathful deities, by the power of truth, pure reality, and by the blessing of the mantras who practice one-pointedly, may every wish of this aspirational prayer be fulfilled. Samaya.
Please read the last, the italics.
Composed by the preceptor from Odhyana Padmakara. May this profound sacred teaching not be extinguished until all the worlds of cyclic existence have been emptied. This is a treasure text of Tulku Karma Lingpa.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Now we go back to page 214 and we'll go through this text. So this
Lance,
yes,
question.
yes.
On page 18, it says second line.
218 or?
Yes, 218, the one that Adrian just read.
Yes, go ahead.
The second line, it says, by the blessings of the mantrins. What is a mantrin?
A mantrin is a nagpa, is a lay practitioner. Mantrin, the root word is mantra. So a mantrin is one who practices mantra.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So it's an adept of the secret mantra, a tantric practitioner. Good eyes.
Lance, that would not include lamas and monks and nuns? Is it? I'm just wondering if it's an inclusive term. Mantrans.
I think in this case, it's irrespective of whether they are ordained or not, monastics or not. It does in one definition, it does specifically say lay, but I think here the common sense would be that it would be irrespective of whether it's lay or monastic. Okay. So back to, where were we? Page 214. So this is the aspirational prayer, which protects from the fear of the intermediate state. So we all have some kind of fear of what this is, of what the Bardo of death is, what the Bardo of reality is, and what the Bardo of rebirth will be, what our next life will be. That no matter who we are, there may be this little twinge of doubt, this little twinge of fear. So this prayer is composed to help us to control that fear, to liberate from that fear. So it says here, where my life's ended and so on, this critical time, release the power of their compassion. So most of this is self-evident. Separated from my loved ones, mirrored images, may Buddhas quickly release the power of their compassion. Awesome, terrifying, intermediate state. May the awesome and terrifying intermediate state be annulled. So the intermediate state is in between. It's all, that's what Bardo Thödol means, the in between states. So we're always in between, and so may the fear of that and the terror of that be annulled. That we have confidence and that we have courage to go through it. So by developing our meditation practices is how we do that. Meditation takes courage. It takes commitment to sit there for long periods of time, and to be able to control the mind takes commitment, takes courage to do that. And when the thoughts come up, when things come up and so on, to have the courage to be able to penetrate them and see what the causes of those are and apply the antidotes to them takes courage and confidence that when you do that, how successful that becomes and so on. So we don't wait until we die to all of a sudden get this courage and this confidence. We got to develop it now.
So Lance, quick question.
Okay.
What is it that actually breaks this fear?
Liberation. Realizing that the fear is nothing but our own mental fabrication.
So is it just the fact that we're going to remember that we're going to encounter such a fear at this time and be able to break through?
We don't necessarily have to face that fear. We can deal with that fear now in our meditations in this life, so that when we enter into the Bardo of reality and the Bardo of death, we've already overcome that. We're already in the presence of Dharmakaya. We are already been liberated. We're already a Buddha.
But you never have the certainty that's going to be like that, right?
If you're a Buddha, there's no question about it.
Right. So, but even the Buddhas go through the Bardos?
For a Buddha to be a Buddha, the Buddha had to be a human being and had to liberate from the human foibles and so on like that. The human nature had to liberate from human nature. And we experience our transcendence of human nature through our practices and through our meditations. Mm-hmm. And then if we can maintain that in post-meditation, if we bring that meditation awareness back in post-meditation and stabilize that, if we can do that for the rest of our lives and we behave in that way, then we could consider ourselves to be a Buddha, a realized Buddha, a perfect Buddha. That's what all this is trying to convey to us, that we can do that.
So I'm just a little confused. I thought that we were talking about the transition state into rebirth, right? So there's
rebirth if you can't stay as a Buddha. If you can't stay liberated, if you can't remain in that free state, then you're bound to be reborn. Remember, the definition of a Buddha, a primordial Buddha, is non-conceptual, unborn, inexpressible. You see how this is tweaking everything that you think you know? All the stuff that we think we got a handle on, now we're really tweaking it. And we're really learning what it means to let go of all our preconceived ideas, to let go of all this stuff that we're so arrogant that we think we can know it, and we do know it.
So basically, this is it right here, just letting go.
That's right.
And Lance, I think what I'm hearing you say is, when you talk about the importance of practicing now, is that it's almost through meditation, that ongoing daily practice of pulling the rug out from underneath ourselves, of saying, well, who is it who thinks she's going to die and go through the Bardos and be reborn again? And to just keep questioning and looking deeper and deeper and deeper until you realize that there's that Buddha nature. That's what's there, and that won't die, and that won't be reborn. And if I can live from that experience instead of my ordinary, fearful, limited experience, then, like you say, I won't even notice when I die. And of course, that's hugely aspirational. But on the other hand, this is it. This is the path for getting there. It's really quite amazing.
Correct. So we're studying the process.
Yes. Are there any signs in like the day-to-day life? Because I'm assuming the fears that you experience in Bardo are similar to the ones that you experience here in this life, in this Bardo. Is that right?
It could be, yeah.
So
if you haven't been able to neutralize them,
right,
you take them with you.
So basically, if you're experiencing any fears through your daily life. That can be a, what's the word that I'm looking for? Indicator that probably you're going to be experiencing similar fears after you pass into the Bardo.
That's true.
So every opportunity that we have in everyday life, it's basically going to be that moment of practice and
That's right.
awareness that we have to weed these fears out so that we prepare ourselves.
Correct. And I'm not talking about, you know, the kind of fear that you have when you're doing some kind of a task and it's a dangerous task, it's your work or something like that, or you're getting behind the wheel of a car and you don't need to be mindful of being protective of driving the car and so on, and having a fear that if you don't, something's going to happen. You know, that's relatively mundane, everyday kind of stuff, you know, but I'm talking more about emotional fears that have to do with delusion and hatred and jealousy and things like that. So there's the relative. It's all happening in the relative, and we have to recognize all of that and put it in its proper perspective and see the equanimity of all of this.
I've heard sometimes meditation said to be that the practice of meditation helps alleviate the fear of death. And no wonder that that is so, because in so many ways it's a rehearsal for dying.
Correct. Correct.
And it's the fear, I think, to put a word on it, the fear the kind of fear we're talking about it is a basic existential fear relating to fundamental existence, you know, sense of
the loss of existence.
But the word philosophically would be about relating to existence, existential fear.
Yeah, but you understand my point, that it's the loss of existence is what we fear.
Yeah.
The existence itself has a lot of fears. That's what I was talking about. But the loss of fear, that's the crossing over. Okay. So let me see here. When I roam alone, so here we're talking about the intermediate. So this intermediate, the fear of the awesome and terrifying intermediate state be annulled, that it be negated, that it be neutralized. You know, not negated, but neutralized, that there's no attachment, there's no aversion. When the 5 radiant lights of pristine cognition dawn, the pristine cognition is what we would say that clear light, you know, so the 5 radiant lights of pristine cognition. So the 5 Buddha families that represent that clear light, that lead us to that clear light, and then their light, the color of their bodies, we'll talk about that. When they dawn and I recognize them as my own nature, that I see that I am Amitabha, I see I am Abhagukshiti, I am Vajrasattva, I am Ascobia, I am Ratnasambhava, I am all these, we are all these. This is our true nature, our diamond-like nature. And to recognize them as my own nature without awe and without terror. You know, that the awe might be, here's this, you know, terrible, you know, power, but it also could be, you know, something that we attach to, you know, something that we want to use and to manipulate other people and say, oh, I'm so powerful, or, oh, I'm so terrified by it. It can be one or the other. And as the manifold forms of the peaceful and wrathful deities arise, may I be fearlessly confident. So the manifold means many, the multiplicity of these meditational deities that are all speaking, that are all part of the display of the Dharmakaya, of the unborn Buddha nature. So this last line, we sent out messages. If you got this last line, that when the printing happened, it missed this line. So it should read, may I be fearlessly confident. That's on the printed page. And then it should say, and recognize the characteristics of the intermediate states. So you should handwrite that in, please. I apologize for the error, but.
It's in the chat, everyone.
All right, so if there's any questions about that, that should be included on the text. And page, can I continue, or should we stop now and go on and finish next time? Because I know we're past 9 o'clock. Does anybody have to go?
I guess
You gotta
stay.
go? Huh?
I can stay.
All right, well, there's a couple people who have to go. So let's suspend this then. We'll come back to this. We'll start over from the beginning, refresh our memories. And because it's all very important, I want everybody who wants to have this to be able to have this. So we say we're going to stop at 9 o'clock. So we want to do that. So let's go on to our closing dedication prayers, please. Debbie, if you will put that up and recite that.
Emaho. In the center is the marvelous Buddha Amitabha of boundless light. On the right side is Avalokiteshvara, the Lord of great compassion. On the left is Vajrapani, the Lord of powerful means. All are surrounded by limitless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Immeasurable peace and happiness is the blissful, pure land of Dewachen. When I and all beings pass from samsara, may we be born in Dewachen without taking samsaric rebirth. May I have the blessing of meeting Amitabha face to face. By the power and blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, may I attain this aspiration without hindrance. Tayata pensa dria awa bodhanaye soha. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. By this virtue, may I achieve all knowingness by defeating all enemies' confusion. May all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of suffering. As Manjushri the warrior realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings.
Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. Thank you very much. That concludes for tonight. Anybody has any questions, you want to stay, I'll stay online for a little bit. If anybody has questions, or you can write them down and we can talk about next time. So thank you all.
I do have a question, Lance, if you want to.
Sure, go ahead.
I did want to ask you about the lights that you're perceiving, right?
The what?
The lights.
Yes.
I closed my book, I put it up, but you know what I'm referring about. So the light of pristine cognition, in each one of those, they have different colors. And I think you mentioned that they are not lights that you're perceiving with your physical eyes, but more like with your spiritual eye. Is that correct?
Correct.
So is that something? How do you relate that to the meditational experience?
Well, it is the meditational experience, and we'll get into that. So we're establishing this firm ground, and we're making references to these things, and then in time we're going to be able to fit all these pieces of the puzzle together. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but generally speaking, those 5 lights are symbolic of the 5 Buddha families.
Mm-hmm.
So the family, the blue family, the white family, the yellow family, the red family, the green family. So we'll put all that together as we move in through the Bardo and so on. So we'll see how that happens. And it all goes to the deity yoga. This is the deity yoga. This is the purpose of that, to recognize all the different aspects, all the different features of our true indestructible nature, our diamond-like nature. So please be patient. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. You understand? We can't do this all at one time. We just can't plug in. If we could, the Buddha would have done it a long time ago. And we wouldn't be born. We wouldn't need to be. But it comes in kind of like layers, and we got to establish a firm, understanding of the fundamentals. And then we move up a notch, and then we move up a notch from that and so on. So be patient, we will get there.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, everybody. Anybody else have anything you want to say or questions? Okay.
Thank you, Lance.
You're
Good
welcome.
night, everyone. Have a lovely holiday weekend.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Be safe, everybody. Yes.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Night all.
Thank you, Lance. It was great.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye.